My 15-year-old nephew slammed the metal safety gate on my 11-year-old daughter's hand and broke 3 bones because she didn't move away from the diving board fast enough. Ren was sitting on the wet concrete, screaming and holding fingers that were already bending the wrong way. Brock stood over her with one hand on the gate, smiling. Then his father walked up, looked at my daughter's swollen hand, and said she probably did something to set him off. 3 younger kids immediately told him Brock had done it on purpose. Trevor ignored them. He said Ren was too sensitive, that Brock was competitive, and that maybe getting hurt would teach her to pay attention. My wife, Delia, dropped beside Ren with a bag of frozen peas. I asked Trevor one last time if he was seriously blaming an injured child. He shrugged. Kids need to learn to get out of the way. I handed Delia my phone and stood up. The 4th of July party was at my parents' house. Almost everyone in the family was there, which meant there were plenty of adults around the pool, and somehow not one of them had stopped Brock. I had gone inside for less than 5 minutes to refill a cooler. When I came back, I heard Ren before I saw her. She was near the deep end, with her knees pulled up, holding her right hand against her chest. Her face had gone pale. Brock was beside the diving board ladder, and several of the younger cousins were pointing at him. One little girl kept saying, "He slammed it. He slammed it on her hand." I knelt in front of Ren. "Don't move it, sweetheart. It hurts." "I know. I'm right here." Her index and middle fingers were already swelling. The back of her hand was turning purple, and one finger sat at an angle that made me look away for half a second. Brock started talking before I even asked him anything. She grabbed the ladder. Ren shook her head. "She was in my way," he continued. "I told her to move." A boy standing near the pool said, "No, you didn't. You just pulled the gate down." Brock glared at him. The boy moved behind his mother but kept talking. He laughed after. That was when Trevor wandered over with a drink in his hand and asked why everyone was making such a big deal. I told him Brock had crushed Ren's hand in the ladder gate. Trevor looked at his son. "Accident?" Brock nodded immediately. "Yeah, she wouldn't move." Trevor turned back to me as if that settled it. "There you go. 3 kids just said he did it on purpose." Kids exaggerate. My daughter's fingers are bent, and we'll get her checked out. Calm down. Ren made a small sound beside me. Delia had reached us and was wrapping the frozen peas in a towel. Trevor kept going. "Brock doesn't just hurt people for no reason. Ren must have been hanging on the ladder or blocking him. You know how she gets." I stood up. "How does she get?" He rolled his eyes. "Fragile. Slow, always waiting for somebody to step in." Ren heard him. I saw it in her face. I said, "Your son just broke her hand. He's a good kid. He gets intense. He's been bullying her for 2 years. Oh, here we go. I came to you about this. You came to Marlene with a list of little complaints. Hair pulling, teasing, kid stuff." He threatened her. Trevor laughed through his nose. "You coddle that girl so much she can't handle anything." One of my aunts told him to stop, but he waved her off. Then he looked down at Ren and said, "Maybe this will teach her to pay attention next time." I hit him. 1 punch. Right in the jaw. His head snapped sideways, and he fell onto the wet concrete. Everyone started shouting at once. Trevor tried to get up. I put my shoe against his chest and told him to stay down. I'm not proud of that part. I was angry enough that I wanted to hit him again. Delia shouted my name. That brought me back. I stepped away and went to Ren. Trevor sat up, holding his jaw. "You're finished," he said. "I'm calling the police. Go ahead. You assaulted me in front of everyone. Your son shattered an 11-year-old's hand. He didn't mean to. You don't know that. I know my son." "No. You know the version of him that wins trophies." My father had already called 911. My mother was crying and trying to move people back from the pool. Marlene ran over and went straight to Brock. "Are you okay?" He was fine. He didn't have a mark on him. Ren was the one shaking on the ground. But my sister was checking Brock's hands and asking whether anybody had touched him. That told me exactly where this was going. The paramedics arrived within minutes. One of them knelt beside Ren and spoke to her in a calm voice. "Can you wiggle your thumb?" "A little." "How about this finger?" She tried and cried out. "Okay, stop. You don't have to do that again." They stabilized her wrist and hand, then lifted her onto a stretcher. As they rolled her toward the ambulance, she looked at me. "Dad, I didn't do anything. I know. I was just standing there. I know, Ren." He said I had to move. "You did nothing wrong." Delia climbed into the ambulance with her. I followed in our car because there wasn't room for both of us. Before I pulled out of the driveway, Trevor sent me a text. "You better hope her hand is fine. You're the one who committed a crime." A second message came before I reached the end of the street. "Brock's future is not getting ruined because your kid can't tell a joke from an accident." I took screenshots at the first red light and sent them to Delia. She called immediately. "Do not answer him. I'm not going to. And don't call your parents." I wasn't planning to. Yes, you were. She knew me too well for years. I had treated every family crisis like something that could be solved if I explained it clearly enough. I thought if I found the right words, my parents would finally admit Brock had a problem, and Marlene and Trevor would finally deal with him. Delia had stopped believing that long before I did. At the hospital, they took Ren back for x-rays. A nurse asked what happened, and Ren gave the same symptoms every time. My cousin closed the ladder gate on my hand. "Was it an accident?" "How do you know?" He looked at me first. That answer stayed with me. The orthopedic doctor came in after the scans. Ren had 2 broken fingers, a fracture in the back of her hand, and serious soft tissue damage. One finger needed a small procedure to set it correctly and would probably require a pin. She would be in a cast for at least 6 weeks. The doctor said the growth plates appeared intact. "That's good," Delia said. "It is," he replied. "But she'll need follow-up imaging and physical therapy. We won't know about full range of motion until the swelling comes down." Ren played piano every day. She painted with that hand. When she heard range of motion, she stopped looking at the doctor and stared at the wall. I sat beside the bed and put my hand on her shoulder. "Will I still be able to play?" she asked. The doctor didn't make promises. "That's the goal. We're going to do everything we can to get you there." The police arrived that evening. I told them the truth, including the part where I punched Trevor and held him down with my foot. The officer looked at me. "Did he threaten you before you struck him?" "No." "Did he move toward your daughter?" "No." "So you hit him because of what he said?" "Yes." Delia closed her eyes. I knew how it sounded because that was exactly what happened. Then I told the officer about Brock. I described the previous 2 years as honestly as I could. The hair pulling, the arm squeezing, the ruined paintings, the threats Ren had mentioned but refused to repeat in detail. I explained that I had raised the issue with Marlene and Trevor and they dismissed it. The officer asked Ren whether she wanted to speak without us in the room. She looked at me first. "You can," I said. "We'll be right outside." She nodded. Delia and I waited in the hall while the officer spoke with her. When he came out, his expression had changed. He asked for the names of the children who had witnessed the pool incident. He also asked whether we wanted to make a formal complaint against Brock. Delia answered before I did. Yes, her voice was quiet. I said yes too. Ren had the procedure the next morning. They placed a small pin in one finger and wrapped her hand in a bright blue cast. We brought her home 2 days later. The first night, she stood in front of the piano for several minutes without sitting down. Then she walked away. At dinner, she struggled to cut her food with her left hand. Delia offered to help. Ren said no, tried again, and knocked her fork onto the floor. She stared at it. "I should moved faster," she said. I pushed my chair back so quickly it scraped the floor. "No." She kept looking down. "If I had just moved when he wanted." "No, Ren, someone doesn't get to hurt you because you didn't jump when he told you to. He always gets mad when people don't listen. That is his problem." She pulled the cast against her chest. Then she said, "I didn't tell you everything because you still made me go around him." That landed harder than Trevor's threat or the police questions. Delia sat down beside her. "What didn't you tell us?" Ren didn't answer at first. Then it all came out. Brock had locked her in the basement bathroom at Easter and left her there while she pounded on the door. He had stolen her sketchbook and ripped out the pages she liked most. At a lake weekend, he held her face against the ground until dirt got into her mouth. He cornered her at family gatherings and squeezed her wrists until she promised not to tell. He told her nobody would believe her. "Why not?" Delia asked. Ren looked at me. "Because everybody likes him." I had no answer for that. She was right. Brock was the family star. He had played travel hockey since he was 6. Trevor talked about junior league scouts as if Brock had already signed a professional contract. My parents displayed his tournament photos on the refrigerator and went to nearly every game. Ren was quiet. She painted, played piano, and avoided attention. Every time she complained, adults told her she was sensitive. Brock understood the system better than any of us. He knew exactly which child he could hurt and which adults would explain it away. I apologized to Ren, not a vague parent apology. I told her exactly what I had done wrong. You asked me not to take you around him, and I kept thinking I could watch closely enough to make it safe. I was wrong, she cried. So you believe me? Yes. All of it? Yes. Delia reached across the table. And you never have to see him again. That was the first promise we made. That actually helped. The next morning, my mother called. She asked how Ren was, then immediately started talking about the police report. Your sister is terrified, she said. Ren has a pin in her finger. I know, and that's awful. But Brock is 15. A criminal case could follow him. He broke her hand. He made a terrible mistake. He laughed after he did it. My mother went quiet. Then she said, your father thinks both boys lost control. Ren is a girl, and she didn't lose control. You know what I mean? No, I don't. My father called 20 minutes later. He was less careful. You had no right to hit Trevor. I already told the police exactly what I did. Good. Then maybe you understand you're not innocent here. My daughter was injured, and now 2 families are dealing with the consequences. 2 families were already dealing with Brock. You just didn't want to admit it. Dad said I was making everything worse. I ended the call. Later that day, a cousin sent Delia a screenshot of something Marlene had posted online. Some people will destroy a talented young man's future over one bad moment because they've always been jealous of his success. Delia commented before I could stop her. Your son broke an 11-year-old girl's hand. Marlene deleted the entire post. The witness statements came in over the next several days. Every child told the same basic story. Brock wanted to use the diving board. Ren had one hand resting on the metal ladder gate. He told her to move. Before she could, he looked down at her hand and slammed the gate shut. Then he laughed. Not one witness supported the accident story. Once those children were allowed to speak, they started talking about other things too. Brock had shoved a younger cousin off a dock. He had pinned another boy against a fence and squeezed his throat. He liked taking toys from little kids and making them beg to get them back. The adults had seen pieces of it for years. Each incident seemed small enough to dismiss by itself. Together, they looked different. Then the hockey association got involved. One of the children at the pool had a parent who coached in the same organization. The parent reported the incident after police asked for a statement. 2 boys from Brock's team came forward. One said Brock had slammed him into the boards after a whistle and threatened him if he complained. Another said Brock cracked a stick against his shins during practice because he missed a pass. The association suspended Brock while it investigated. Trevor called me that night. You got what you wanted. What did I want? Scouts stopped calling. That has nothing to do with me. You gave the league a story. Your son gave them a pattern. He made one mistake. One mistake doesn't usually have a dozen witnesses and several earlier victims. You've always been jealous of him. Of Brock? Of what he can do. Your kid sits at a piano. Mine had a future. I almost hung up. Instead, I said, my daughter still has a future. Your son just has to face what he did. Trevor started shouting. I set the phone on the counter until he stopped, then ended the call. Ren started therapy the following week. She didn't want to go. Therapy is for people who can't handle their own problems, she said. Delia and I looked at each other. That sounded exactly like something Brock or Trevor would say. Delia sat beside her. It's 1 hour where you don't have to handle anything by yourself. Ren agreed to try once. Her therapist, Dr. Okafor, never pushed her to forgive anyone or talk before she was ready. After the 3rd session, she asked to meet with Delia and me. She said Ren needed consistency, no forced contact with Brock, no surprise family meetings, no adults asking her to move on, no discussion about how the case might hurt Brock's future. She has spent a long time being told her discomfort matters less than everybody else's peace, Dr. Okafor said. Don't repeat that now. We won't, Delia said. I wanted to believe I could say the same with confidence. Then my parents asked us to attend a family meeting. Delia said no immediately. I hesitated. What do you think they're going to do? She asked. Maybe some of them haven't heard the full story. They've heard enough. I want to say it in front of everyone. Why? because they keep acting like it's an accident. Delia studied me. You want a fair hearing from people who already chose a side. She was right. I went anyway. I left Ren at home with Delia. The moment I entered my parents' living room, I knew it wasn't a discussion. It was an intervention, and I was the problem. My parents sat together on the couch. Marlene and Trevor were in 2 chairs across from them. 2 aunts, an uncle, and several cousins had been invited. My mother started crying before I sat down. This family is falling apart. My father added, everybody has made mistakes. Trevor touched his jaw. I'm willing to let the assault go. I looked at him. How generous. In exchange, my mother said, you stop pushing the case against Brock. I laughed. I didn't plan to. The demand was so backwards that it came out before I could stop it. One aunt leaned forward. No one is saying Brock was right. But ending a boy's hockey career over one bad decision seems extreme. Did Trevor tell you about the other kids? She frowned. What other kids? The boys from his team, the younger cousins, the 2 years he spent targeting Ren. Marlene shook her head. There is no proof of 2 years. There's Ren's statement. There are other children's statements. There are complaints from the Hockey Association. Children repeat things, she said. Your son crushed her hand. It was an accident. 7 witnesses disagree with you, Trevor muttered. You're turning your daughter into a victim because you like the attention. I stood so quickly, the chair scraped across the floor. My daughter is a victim. My father raised his voice. Sit down. No, don't speak to your mother like this. Then stop asking me to trade my daughter's safety for Trevor's silence. My mother covered her face. You would tear the family apart over this? Brock already hurt her. You're asking me to help hide it. You're asking the injured child to provide it. Nobody answered. I looked around the room. If you believe Ren should accept this so Brock can keep playing hockey, you don't get access to her. Not at holidays. Not at birthdays, not through texts or gifts. Nothing. My mother stared at me. You would keep our granddaughter from us? I will keep her away from anyone who thinks her broken hand is negotiable. Then I left. 3 people followed me into the driveway. My cousin Paige was crying. She admitted her sons had complained about Brock too, but she had dismissed it because Trevor always called him competitive. My Uncle Dale said my father hated conflict so much that he would rather live in the middle of it forever than confront the person causing it. Aunt Lottie apologized. I saw things, she said. Not this bad, but enough. I should said something. That was the real split in the family. Not everybody chose us, but after that meeting, fewer people could claim they didn't know. Brock's suspension became a full season removal after the conduct review. His team dropped him, and the scouts Trevor had bragged about stopped contacting the family. Trevor blamed me for all of it. A few weeks later, he came to my house and pounded on the front door, hard enough to rattle the pictures in the hallway. Ren was on the couch. She heard his voice and pulled her cast against her chest. Go upstairs, I told her. Delia called the police while I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. Trevor stood on the porch with his face red. Fix this. No, he lost his roster spot. I heard. The scouts are gone. That's not my problem. You made it everybody's business. Brock broke a child's hand at a party full of witnesses. He's 15, so he's old enough to understand what happens when he hurts someone. Trevor stepped closer. You always hated that my son was better than your daughter. Better at what? Hurting smaller kids, he pointed at the house. She played it up. You know she did. I moved closer until we were almost chest to chest. Do not say another word about my daughter. For once, Trevor stopped. Then he changed tactics. He said my mother cried every day. He said my father wasn't sleeping. He said Marlene could barely leave the house because people judged her. I listened until he finished. What broke this family? I said. Was your son crushing Ren's hand and all of you blaming her for it? I went inside and locked the door. Trevor left before the police arrived. We still filed a report. Brock's juvenile case ended several months later because he had no prior formal record. The court ordered probation, counseling, anger management classes, and community service. He was required to stay away from Ren. Trevor called the result unfair. I thought it was lenient. My own situation with Trevor's punch ended through an agreement. He chose not to pursue a complaint after his lawyer explained that the entire pool incident, including his comments and my cooperation with police, would become part of the record. I wasn't cleared because the punch was justified. I was lucky. I told Ren that too. What I did to Trevor was wrong, I said. Being angry doesn't make it legal, but he deserved it. Maybe. That still doesn't make it smart. She thought about that. Would you do it again? I didn't answer immediately. I hope I'd get you into the ambulance first. That was the most honest answer I had. Ren's cast came off after 6 weeks. The skin underneath was pale and her hand looked smaller than the other one. She had a thin scar where the pin had been placed. Physical therapy hurt. Some days she refused to do the exercises until Delia sat beside her and did them too with her own hand. The first time Ren returned to the piano, she placed both hands over the keys and waited. Then she played 4 slow notes. The 4th came out uneven. She pulled her hands back and started crying. Delia sat beside her. I went into the kitchen because I couldn't watch without making it about my own feelings. A few minutes later, I heard another note, then another. She didn't play a song that day. She played 8 notes. The next day she played 12. A month later, she asked for a self-defense class. Not hockey, she said quickly. I wasn't going to suggest hockey. I mean, not a sport where people hit each other for points. I want to learn how to get away if someone grabs me. We found a small jiu-jitsu gym with an instructor who focused on control, balance, and getting to safety. Ren hated the first 2 classes. She was used to being good at piano and art. Being clumsy embarrassed her. We told her she could quit. She kept going. About 6 weeks later, she got into the car after class and buckled her seatbelt. I got out of a wrist hold today. Yeah? Coach grabbed me harder this time, and I still got out. She looked out the window, trying not to smile. I kept my eyes on the road. By Thanksgiving, we had stopped attending family gatherings. My mother sent a message saying the door was open whenever I was ready to stop punishing everyone. I didn't answer. We had Thanksgiving at home. Delia cooked enough food for 10 people. Ren painted 3 place cards with her healed hand and put them at the table. No one asked us to discuss the case. No child had to watch where Brock was standing. After dinner, Ren played half a song on the piano and stopped when her hand got tired. It was the calmest Thanksgiving we had ever had. At Christmas, she opened a wooden easel and a set of paints. She looked around the living room and said, "This is better than Grandma's." She didn't whisper it. That mattered. In January, after months of messages passed through relatives, Delia and I changed the locks and installed cameras. Then I sent certified letters to my parents, Marlene and Trevor. Do not come to our home without an invitation. Do not contact Ren directly. Do not send messages, gifts, or apologies through other relatives. Contact us by email only and only for a genuine emergency. Delia read it before I sent it. Don't soften it, she said. I didn't. My mother replied with 4 pages about misunderstandings, broken hearts, and one terrible afternoon erasing a lifetime of love. I started writing back. Then I remembered Ren saying she had hidden the worst of the abuse because I kept making her attend family events. I deleted the draft and blocked the address. A year after the pool party, I saw Trevor and Marlene in a hardware store. They looked tired. Trevor noticed me first. He could have walked away. Instead, he stopped beside my cart. Still think you did the right thing? I had light bulbs, furnace filters, and painter's tape in the cart. Ren was at home practicing a new piano piece. 2 of her watercolor paintings were hanging in our hallway. I looked at him every day. Then I walked into the next aisle. Ren is 12 now. She still has a faint scar across the back of her hand. Her grip is almost normal, and she plays piano without pain most days. She still goes to therapy, though not every week anymore. Brock has not contacted her, neither have Marlene or Trevor. My parents occasionally send messages through relatives. We don't respond. A few months ago, Ren asked me whether I regretted punching Trevor. We were in the kitchen. She was painting at the table while I washed dishes. I dried my hands and sat across from her. I regret that it took an ambulance ride for me to stop bringing you around people who weren't safe. That's not what I asked. I know. So do you regret hitting him? Yes. She raised an eyebrow, I added. I also understand why I did it. She studied my face for a few seconds. Then she smiled. You did get him pretty good. I laughed before I could stop myself. She laughed too and went back to painting. That was the first time either of us had talked about the pool party without the rest of the day taking over the room.